Pete, thanks for joining me, brother.
Yeah, Brett, thank you so much, man. This is like huge opportunity. Love it. And obviously it was great to talk with you like 2 days ago for the first time, but I feel like we hit it off right away.
Dude, so I think the call was, are you on Central Time in Ohio?
I'm on Eastern.
Okay, so you're on Eastern. I was on Central Time, so it was 7:30 your time, 6:30 my time. And my initial thought process was like, oh, should I tell him that it's too early? I'm like, no, I've been wanting to connect with you for a while. And it was that type of conversation where within the first 30 seconds, that you're like, this is my guy.
Yes.
And that conversation was like jet fuel. Like it propelled me through the rest of my day.
It was so funny. I went into the call thinking it was going to be 10 to 15 minutes of just getting to know you. And then I looked down at the timestamp and it said 55 minutes or something like that.
Yeah, we could have kept going too.
Yeah, for sure. And then I think one of us was like, we should probably hold off on saying any more and let's just rip it on the podcast and see where it goes.
We could have recorded that whole episode and it would have been fantastic.
It would have been great.
You got to save the bullets sometimes.
Yeah, exactly.
I've been thinking about this too, this concept of like, sometimes I think about whether it's a conversation like we had, a quick morning run, a sauna session. I'm like, I need to just make time for the things that are going to make me feel amazing that will like be jet fuel for the rest of the day.
Yeah. I mean, it's a productivity hack if you're going through. My best days are when I wake up early when I don't want to, and I choose to do something hard. You know, like for me, like I love running first thing in the morning. Now, especially in Cleveland, Ohio, where I'm from, I don't have to throw ice into my ice barrel. It's just naturally cold. So like I'll do my best to start off the day, morning run, quick cold immersion, and then I'll get my kids up at 6:30 a.m. So that way I'm not missing any of that process with my wife of waking up the kids. And I'm telling you, like, just like you said, it's jet fuel through and through.
And it's interesting because I still feel like even if I get enough sleep, if I'm setting the alarm for 5 or 5:30, there's always that natural inclination to snooze. And sometimes when I won't hit snooze and I'll get out of bed and I'll do that routine that you're talking about, I'm like, dude, I feel so good. Imagine all the days that I missed out on this because I just hit snooze for like a couple rounds.
It's the inner dialogue.
Yeah.
So Eric Hinman and I, we were talking about it this morning. I asked him, does cold immersion get any easier for you? Like, what is your inner dialogue before you get into a raging river, before you get into the ice barrel? And he said 4 years ago, he was much more hardened, but now because he's done it so often and it hasn't gotten any easier, he almost doesn't want to do it. But then after, he has an even higher dopamine effect and dopamine response because he inside was like, I don't want to do this. This is not comfortable at all. And then he did it, and it was like that true type 2 fun response where all of a sudden you're like, I'm on top of the world. Yeah. Like if you would have heard out loud my inner dialogue prior to me getting into the ice barrel yesterday, we had our first snow in Cleveland. I contemplated for maybe like 20 minutes about getting in. I was like, it's only going to be 2 minutes. Just do it. And I did it, and it was an immediate, thank God I did that. Yeah. It was an immediate response. Even you, someone that owns an amazing sauna brand, you do Sauna Co Plunge, I would imagine almost every single day, you're still sitting there with that resistance because it doesn't get easier. Yeah, and I think that people misconstrue that because we're so consistent about it, it's easy. Yeah. It's never easy. Yep. It is actually what I find harder because like you're doing more frequent bouts of it. Yeah. You don't necessarily crave the sensation of doing it, but you crave the response of after doing it. And that's where I think, you know, where the world needs to go is more type 2 fun, more like healthier dopamine responses outside of like drugs and alcohol. Yeah. And it's just specifically for cold plunge, less of sauna. I think the barrier for entry for sauna is much lower. Anybody wants to get in a sauna, but once you get to like 20 minutes, like, do you actually want to stay in? 100%. But for cold, you're despising it before you get in, but then all it takes is 20 seconds and you're good. Yeah. And you could control your breathing. Yeah. And when you get out, it's just this massive endorphin rush. Dude, it affects you the rest of the day. Did you ever get into Entourage? No, but you're like the 5th person to tell me. So it sounds like I need to. It's an amazing show, and it's like you can bang through the series. It's such a good show, but the talent agent who's one of the main characters, Ari Gold, he's based off of a real life agent who's Ari Emanuel. Yeah. So he's the founder of William Morris Endeavor, which is like the biggest talent agency. They bought the UFC. The guy's a mogul. And I was listening to him on a podcast because it's so cool how a lot of these moguls are now publicly sharing their story. Yeah. And he's a huge sauna cold plunge guy. And he was saying, and he's got a really dialed in morning routine, but he was saying that he really listens to the voice of things that he doesn't want to do, and that's actually his guiding principle. Yep. So it's kind of similar to what you talked about, where when he goes in the cold plunge, he's like, I don't want to do this. So for him, it's, I have to do this because my voice is telling me I don't want to do it, which means that it's probably good for me too. And so he has experience of knowing that though. Yes. Most people haven't done enough hard shit to realize that inner dialogue is actually a healthy, normal dialogue.
Yeah.
And so when you lean into it and you actually go past that dialogue and do the opposite of what your inner dialogue is telling you to do, you could really find out great things about yourself. But that sensation and that inner dialogue never changes.
Totally.
It never does. As mentally hardened as you want to say, like even David Goggins, if you read his second book, he literally talks about how he still has that inner bitch voice,
dude,
come out all the time. And he's quote unquote the toughest guy in the world.
Yes.
Right. He still has the same sensations that we all go through. It's just he goes past it and chooses to do the opposite of what his inner dialogue is. So it's just a very natural human response when we're faced with challenge.
Yeah, I think he says that his like minimum running dose is somewhere between like 8 miles at the lowest and 20 miles at the highest every single day.
Yep. And
he'll stare at his running shoes for 30 minutes still.
Think about that. So think about all the conversations that he has in his mind with himself.
Yeah.
That's powerful. And so the more that people realize that this is a normal thing, I think that's when it's going to allow people to finally push past some barriers and understand that it's just normal.
Yeah.
Work past that dialogue and start making something of yourself.
Yeah. That's such a good point. On a separate note, we got to find a way to contact Ari and get him a SISU or something like that.
That would be great.
If he uses sauna every day, that would be massive for the brand.
That would be so fun.
We'll figure out a back door how to get in there.
Yeah, I love it. I love it.
So for you, man, so you're the founder of SISU Sauna. For anyone that's not as familiar with your stuff, incredible sauna company, Ohio made, all US made. There's a lot of details that we can get into that I'm pumped to dig into, but you guys have absolutely exploded the last year. The first time I used your sauna, like many other people, was at our good buddy Eric Hinman's house in Denver, Colorado. He's hosting these unbelievable gatherings. He's got like the 4 to 6 hour, almost like sauna happy hour, where he'll just invite a bunch of friends out and you get to co-mingle and you sauna and you co-plunge. It's the coolest experience ever. But we just wanted to connect with you after that because the quality of the sauna is so good. But
it means a lot.
Yeah, man, of course. And for the listener, tell us your story because the journey's been amazing the last year, but I know it goes way beyond that.
Yeah, it's been very surreal, very humbling. We like to say it's a God thing for sure.
For sure.
So for us, we got SISU off the ground in August of 2022. And prior to SISU, we actually had a dealership on the side as a hobby where we were selling another manufacturer's sauna. And so anybody that was in Ohio that wanted this sauna through this manufacturer would have to go through us because we own the rights to the dealership for all of Ohio. So basically we would field requests and then 1 to 2 saunas a month type of sales would come through. It was good, like side cash. This was just prior to COVID. And then COVID hit and then there were surcharges on wood. There were 11-month lead times. There was like 11K minimum orders. Decreases in craftsmanship were starting to occur. And so we realized that it was becoming a very unmarketable product and experience for people, specifically in Ohio. And Ohio is not bred for sauna in terms of the type of person that will buy sauna, just because it's a higher priced item. And the demographic doesn't really allow for that in terms of like the medium income in Ohio. So we kind of realized that there was trouble that we're about to find out. And we got 12 months straight with no sale during COVID. And there was a point last year, March of 2022, where we were on a morning trail run. And on this trail run, my business partner and I at the time were talking about how we're going in different directions with our life. Like Nick and his wife were just opening up a school that's a super learner-driven environment that is all about breeding entrepreneurs and leaders at younger ages, called the Acton Academy. And it's there in Cleveland, Ohio, where we're from. And then myself, I was in the gym space for nearly 10 straight years as a personal trainer, general manager, then owning a gym up in Cleveland called Black Flag Athletics. And we scaled that from 30 members to 400 plus members. Wow. And that was like where I got really introduced to the business. Anyway, so he was really pursuing his entrepreneurial pursuits. I'm pursuing mine. This is a waste of time pursuing this marketing, or I'm trying to market this dealership. So let's just dissolve it. So we agreed to that on our morning run, and 10 minutes later on that same run, we both looked at each other real quick and said, let's back up for a second. What's actually happening? Why do we want to dissolve this? What are the issues that we're experiencing? How could somebody solve these? Because this isn't the only company that is having issues with all these features I was telling you about that were lacking. And so we just started running with the concept of saying, should we manufacture? Where would we manufacture? If we were to manufacture, what heater would we use? If we were to manufacture, what wood would we use? If we were to manufacture, who do we want representing the brand? What do we want the brand to stand for? And it was all within like this hour run that we decided, actually, maybe instead of dissolving the dealership, we go into manufacturing in Amish country in Ohio, include the home heater. Let's do simple sauna packages. Let's, instead of having a billion different SKUs, let's really focus on 1 to 2 SKUs and make it an all-inclusive package with one option. Do you need a roof kit or not?
Yeah.
Let's do quick lead times of 4 weeks. Let's find trusted fitness professionals and influencers on Instagram who have great audiences who want to bring people together through sauna, and let's let them highlight what SISU means. And so we leaned in on that, and that was March, and it took us about 5 months or so where we built out the team. We found the perfect manufacturing site in Amish country in Ohio on the east side of Cleveland, and we launched the Edwin barrel, which was only 1 SKU right out of the get-go on August 1st of 2022. And it took us 3 or 4 days to get our first sale. And so, as you can imagine, going 18 straight months without a single sauna sale,
dude,
to selling your first one, it gave us a huge boost of confidence, a huge like reassurance that this is what we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And shortly thereafter, I got connected with Wyatt Ewing, the founder of Ice Barrel, and we hit it off right away. And we wanted to bring on a cold immersion product onto our site. So we started wholesaling Ice Barrel, but he's like, hey, let's actually chat for a bit. I want to get to know you. And likewise, I wanted to get to know him. We hit it off right away. And he said, actually, I'm going to buy 2 of your saunas. So this was a day after we had our first sale. So now I'm thinking,
3.
oh, wow, this is 3 in the first 7 days. And then we went to the CrossFit Games. And I got to meet Eric Hinman for the first time. We signed him as an ambassador. And then we had a sale, and another sale, and another sale, and another sale. And by the end of the first month, we had 8 sales. And it gives me goosebumps to think about it, because it's just like the perspective of having 18 straight months with no sale to 8 sales the first month and not knowing what this was going to turn into. Yeah. And so you fast forward a year to where we're at now, and it's been a blessing through and through. And we've been able to grow the team and add more SKUs, but keep things simple. But at the same time, our entire mission is to really spread the SISU lifestyle to where people are coming together through Sauna and Cold Plunge, embracing hard shit and persevering and being resilient. So that's our entire mission. And what SISU means, and the reason why we took a deep dive into SISU and made that our brand, Finland, hundreds of years ago, coined this concept SISU, which we don't have one word in the English language that it translates to. Instead, it's more of a concept that we could try to articulate in the English language, which stands for perseverance, tenacity, bravery, and grit. And for us, the SISU lifestyle is simply that. It's that type 2 fun. It's getting people to stop being comfortable and leaning into more so of knowing, like, I don't need material items. I don't need to be pursuing things that are fake. It's actually more so of us taking a deep dive into what makes us feel fulfilled and doing things that are difficult and persevering and being resilient. And so getting people to do that through the medium of sauna and through the medium of cold plunge, but doing so together, that's what gets us fired up. And so that's our mission.
Dude, there's so much power and there's so much to unpack in that story. So did you guys pick a Swedish word as like an homage to the fact that Sweden is such a big sauna country? Finland. Sorry,
yeah. So Finland is the birthplace of sauna.
Okay.
And way back in the day, some of like the initial infirmaries or hospitals, they would create these rooms covered with animal skin, and they would put a sauna or a heater where they would put fire, and then above the fire would be rock, and the fire would heat up the rock and the rocks would heat the room. And when you had a virus or when you were sick, you'd actually go into this room and sweat it out. So that was the initial concept. And then all of a sudden it became such a thing and such a cultural identity of Finland that it came to a point to where present day, for every 2 people, there's 1 sauna in Finland.
Wow. For every 2 people, there's 1 sauna.
And what's also very interesting is that Finland is known as the happiest nation in the world, but they have the highest amount of cloud coverage in the entire world as well. So many people always say, well, if I have good sun exposure and I'm in an environment where I could get vitamin D and I'm happy, it's not that. What we're realizing is that the catalyst to sauna is the relationship. So if there's two people, for every two people, there's one sauna. That means that every single household basically has a sauna.
Yes.
Which means, where do they break bread after dinner? So you go to the sauna. That's just what they do. And they're happy because, again, they get to that point where they have to persevere a little bit because things get tough in the sauna, but they have a shared suffering. They're not on their phones. They're just truly enjoying each other in that process.
That's incredible, man. I really appreciate the honesty around the building process around SISU, because I would think that the natural inclination when I look at your Instagram is like, damn, these guys came out of nowhere over the last year, which in some ways that's true. But to your point, you guys went 18 months without making a single sale. And I think there's a lot of new time founders that are kind of in the dirt right now and are struggling to make money. So I think that should give people a lot of inspiration that it was an 18-month process to make a single dollar with the sauna. Can you kind of explain what your mindset was like at the time, like how you continued to stay motivated? Because I think that would be a really interesting nugget to pull on.
Yeah. So to preface that, I think where that value of consistency and persistence stemmed from was ultra running. So my dad and I started ultra running the same year. When I was 17, he was 48.
Wow.
My dad quit chain smoking, cold turkey, and then directly went into marathon running and ultra running. Granted, he was a good athlete, but there was a number of bad vices in his life that he needed to swap out. And at the time, I was playing basketball, about to go play college basketball. It was just a cool thing. I was like, Dad, why not you and I go run an ultra trail marathon together? This would be fun. It would give us something to train for. And so through this process, we would run a couple ultra marathons, 50Ks, 50 milers together year after year. And what I realized is that for us to perform well along that route, we had to be consistent. We had to be persistent too. You can't just show up and run these things. You can, but it's not going to bode well for you. And so what I found was that through this continual process of having to endure, I was able to apply that same principle to what was happening in the business, albeit it was a hobby on the side. It wasn't my main focus in terms of business. So it wasn't like I was spending 8 hours a day on it. Maybe I was spending a couple hours a day on it. That said, it would have been very easy. The easiest option would have been to give up and to listen to the inner dialogue from what we were talking about earlier.
Yes.
And say, this isn't doing well. Let's just give up and focus on what we need to actually focus on, instead of actually saying, maybe there's still something here. And again, the reason why I call it a God thing is there's a reason why, like, God's hand was on that to say, no, you're going to stay in this. You're going to stick in this. There's a reason why I'm making you suffer through no sales right now. I'm toughening your mind and getting you to understand, like, this is how there's an opportunity here for you to pivot this business in a way that you're going to actually affect lives with it. But I need to teach you first.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes I wonder if God, I'm not saying he wants you to suffer, but like a good father, he's wants to make sure that you really want this as badly as you think you do.
You're going to learn.
You're going to learn.
You'll learn today, boy.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what it felt like.
Yeah. And yeah, our pastor in Austin always, Scott, who's the man, big runner. He always says that God's plans are so much bigger than your own. Whereas like you and your business partner had this one sauna business, it was doing well, business declined during COVID, and then that pivoted into this incredible brand that now exists that like truly is, I think, God's mission for you. Yeah.
That's the exact way that I feel. And it's the reason why we're very careful to not be a product-based brand, rather very experienced and relationship-driven brand, because again, that's what actually will change the healthscape of America, because it's a declining healthscape, and it's a personal mission of mine to bring people together, to get people of different backgrounds and different backgrounds and adversities, put them together in a sauna and see what happens. It's not an experiment. Like, things are going to bode well for everybody in the sauna, but we're going to be able to drive health, drive social experience. And what is also super interesting, if you look at health span, lifespan, the single most beneficial factor for predicting a long health span is relationship quality. So if I can cultivate that in a product where people want to invite people into their own homes and again break bread in the sauna, I'm going to do that.
Yeah, it's like this blend between there needs to be, to pull on like the Goggins thread a bit, there needs to be this like certain level intrinsic motivation. But then there's also levers that you can pull that actually make this stuff fun and enjoyable. So I do, right? It is important for you to have the discipline and the willpower to be like, I can sauna, cold plunge, do a run on my own. But then there's the benefit of bringing really good friends in too, which number one, it makes the time pass way faster.
Oh yeah.
Like I'll set my phone and I'll be talking to someone. I'm like, damn, I was in here for 25 minutes. When normally if I'm on my own, I'm struggling to get through like 15 or something like that. Cold plunging is the same way. And you can have fun with this stuff. We do this thing from a nutrition standpoint. We just do steak Saturdays at the house. So
love that.
We get the grill fired up. You eventually, when you're back in Austin, we will set that up and you'll be there. Or
we call it the meat sweats in Cleveland,
dude.
So we do sauna, cold plunge, and then after we've got one guy manning the grill.
Yeah.
So as soon as you're done, we just crush steak.
And it's so fun. It's so fun. It's so simple.
Yes.
We have the guys do like BYOS, bring your own steak. Harry gets the PK grill fired up, and you just have the best conversations afterward.
Yep.
And it's so simple.
Yeah, that's the fun part, is that you could include sauna, you can include cold immersion, you can include good eating around all of this, and it's all about, to me, define what the societal norm is right now. Of I'm going to go out and just get belligerent drunk.
Yes.
Friday, Saturday nights. That's what we've been taught, that's what we've been told, that this is what we need to do for the last 50, 60 years. So now, because it's such a declining healthscape in America, we need to start finding alternatives, and not just an alternative, a sustainable alternative. And this is it to me.
Yeah. And that's why I love people like Eric who, hey, instead of like grabbing beers over happy hour at 5 o'clock, come to my house. It's a 2-hour open slot. We're going to sauna. We're going to do some healthy stuff. So you're going to get healthier. You're also going to have the best conversations that you've ever had. It kind of reminds me of, I started doing this. I would notice when I would go to housewarming parties, right? The conventional nice gift is to get someone a bottle of wine or something like that. I'm like, dude, why don't I just bring them something like beef tallow, like something that's unique. It's actually healthy. You can cook with it.
Yeah.
It's actually useful. Like, how do we make these like simple swaps and socialization?
Yeah. What's so funny, and this is thinking about Eric, he is a true trailblazer. What you guys are doing with Meat Mafia and Noble, trailblazing. I think everybody has something in them that makes them super unique. You giving somebody beef tallow is very unique. Not everybody's going to show up with beef tallow, but there's something inside of you that is telling you to do that.
Yeah.
And you're executing on that inner, gut feeling. There's people out there that don't listen to that gut feeling or that nudge and don't act on it. And think about how much more fun just our day-to-day would be with everybody and meeting new people if everybody just really leaned into what their nudge was telling them to do.
Oh man.
If I'm going to a housewarming party, if everybody brought something unique that was unique to them that they feel that person would benefit from having, think about how cool and unique that would be in terms of just the gift giving.
Oh my gosh.
It's so cool to me.
That would be so cool. That actually is the worst feeling to be in, is when you feel like you have these God-given gifts or talents or things that you're not leaning into. I mean, full transparency, I went carnivore in 2019 because I was trying to heal some really bad gut issues that I had. And I turned my whole life around, and I would create all these like diet plans for people. I was super passionate about helping other people get healthy. And I felt this nudge to publicly tell my story. And I remember sitting down like 3 separate times, just trying to write a blog, and I just scrapped it because I was trying to be too perfect. And I remember that shitty feeling versus the feeling of finally getting out there. And I think that's kind of what led to this whole thing. And it's the same thing for you too. You got to lean into that nudge that you feel.
Yeah. Authenticity and speaking the truth are the easiest ways to get your message across every single time. I used to be a chronic liar back in college, I would say. And I always found that if you are lying, you cannot remember every lie that you've said.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden you start contradicting what you used to say. And so what I found is just who I am, like what I've tried to evolve into being. If I am 100% authentic to myself and 100% truthful, and I am who I am, I don't have to sugarcoat anything. You just get what you get. And I don't have to remember anything. This is just me speaking. And that's something that, unfortunately, because of social media, people live fake lives, and like what they're portraying is actually the complete opposite of what's happening in the background, which is a shame. But that's where I think if people are more upfront and authentic and true to themselves on social media, again, I think that social media could end up being a really cool tool.
Yeah. the overt transparency, I think it just makes you more relatable to people.
Oh God,
like
yeah.
openly being willing to say like, hey, we launched Noble 6 months ago. This is realistically where we're at. These are the sales. Like we did a Q&A episode. Someone asked us like, how much do you guys actually make on the podcast? And we were like, look, we do about 35,000 downloads a month. Most brands view that as like somewhat medium to small, even though our audience is really niche, and we only make like $9K a month off the sponsorships. How we've really monetized up to pay ourselves is this Twitter marketing agency, because we're able to promote brands, help them spread their message on a platform. I think just transparency like that makes things a lot more relatable to people, because I think there definitely is some validity to the followers that you have. But what I've learned getting in this space is it's very rare to see people that have a big following that actually know how to monetize it too. But I think we just need to be more upfront and authentic.
Yeah, and I think like the transparency side of things is huge, and knowing that if you could relate to somebody, all of a sudden that person that is looking up to you for that influencer, looking up to you for the inspiration, they might actually pull the trigger on their idea.
Yes.
Because they know that, oh, this guy is also struggling. Maybe I could actually get this off the ground too, and this is just going to be normal.
Definitely. One of the other interesting parts in your story 10 minutes ago was the hour-long run that you and your business partner had. And there's like a few threads that I want to pull on. Number one, I respect the transparency to at least recognize that you guys were going in different directions, because partnerships are so hard, and I don't think enough partners have those honest conversations. But also you were able to go from, okay, I think we're probably going to dissolve this thing, to, hey, let's actually take a step back. Is there potential here? What are the tweaks? What's like the strategy redirection we need to make? And that led to you guys doing SISU. And I'm also curious, because it was over a run. I wonder if you guys, if you didn't have that run, if SISU would even exist, or maybe you would have figured it out eventually, but I don't know.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where there's a reason behind everything that we do. It's never a coincidence. We're doing, like, there's a reason why we're on a podcast right now.
Mm-hmm.
Whether or not somebody's going to grab something from this message, or 2 years down the line, somebody's going to grab something from this message and create something of themselves, that's amazing. For us, you know, with SISU and that trail run, mind you, it was like 5 a.m. in the morning, so we couldn't really see in front of us. It was truly us just conversing and just looking at each and every step as they come. It again, not to bring it up again, but it's a God thing. There was a reason why it happened, and we're now sitting in front of each other as a result of that simple half-hour exchange that I had no idea was going to change the lives of thousands of people.
Yeah. When you were just like, with the knowledge that you had in the sauna space, were there any particular things that stuck out about the industry in general that made you think, hey, I think we can disrupt this and do it the right way?
Yeah.
And the reason why I'm asking that, we were talking about this on the phone call. I've probably mentioned this 4 times on the podcast. One of the best shows I've ever listened to is Jocko's podcast with his Origins co-founder, Pete Roberts. And they're bringing back U.S. manufacturing for clothing and apparel,
yes.
right? They were like, why is everything being outsourced to China and these Middle Eastern countries? Like, we used to be this incredible apparel industry that doesn't exist anymore. And they're like, you know what? We're going to put our money where our mouth is. They bought all these old mills in Maine. They grow their cotton in Texas. They grow another fiber in Georgia. Like, they're truly committed to that. And I'm curious, like, I know you guys are very proudly Ohio and U.S. made. Yeah. So I'm just curious, what were some of the things that you saw in the sauna space where you were like, we could do this better?
Yeah, for sure. So there's a number of features that we have with SISU that are unique to SISU. And one of the first things is that we source all of our wood straight from Idaho. Mm-hmm. So Western red cedar, we get it shipped in, and then we mill it on site with our Amish team in Burton, Ohio. And what we found is that the competing companies, I don't even want to call it competing companies, the other companies and brands out there that are creating saunas are often finding and sourcing their wood from other countries or simply buying from Alibaba. And so if you look at the cold immersion space right now, you're seeing a result of what Alibaba could do, is that there's all these cold plunge companies that are buying the same tub and then private labeling the tub and making a brand out of it as a money play.
Interesting.
And so what I found was that there's a number of sauna companies out there that were doing the same exact thing. So with the other sauna companies too, we found that there were way too many options. You go to the site and you have to truly be educated as a customer to know whether or not you needed this sauna or this upgrade or not that upgrade, or this kilowatt heater versus this kilowatt heater. And it's a true process to the point to where it would turn off a customer. And we viewed it as an opportunity for us to really take a deep dive into knowing which heater we wanted to go with. And so what we ended up doing was creating a great partnership with Whom out of Estonia. This is the only thing that is not US made. And Whom has become the gold standard in the sauna space for not only aesthetic and convenience, but also for heat and rock volume. So we decided on using this premium heater, Whom, the Whom drop with our barrel saunas, where it's triple the rock volume of any competing brand sauna. It is, so there's about 100 to 120 pounds of rock and stone versus like the standard 40 pounds. And then on top of that, it gets up to 230 degrees. Every other sauna heater out there taps out at 185 just because it was UL listed versus this new agency that's come in that's a certifying body that is now also US accredited and everything's good to go. They were the ones that signed off on Whom. So you could actually get your sauna up to 230 degrees versus it being like a safety shut off feature at 185. What we're finding is that the research is conducive to 176 degrees to 215 degrees. So you're telling me that if I'm going to buy a sauna, I'm going to get heat adapted up to 185 degrees, and then that's where my heat stress adaptation stops, right? I need to continually put myself in an environment that is going to be a stressful environment for me to keep making adaptation. That's where the Whom heater comes into play. It gets so piping hot that you'll never be able to fully adapt to it. I'm also able to, one of the reasons why we wanted to do this is we wanted to make it uber convenient on the customer. So there's an actual app on your phone that I can set. If I'm driving home from work, I can set up to 230 degrees or down to 110 degrees right there, turn it on. I could also put it onto a schedule. So every single day at 5 a.m., if I want the sauna to turn on at a specific time, we can do it. So the convenience level is huge. We also found that specifically in the barrel sauna game, there are barrel sauna companies that are not sending out saunas with roof kits. And after trial and error with our own saunas and really learning from like the first 10 or so customers, we decided to come out with a roof kit, a unique roof kit that includes a rain and ice guard plus cedar lap side and then associated trim. And the reason why that's a difference maker is that every other sauna company right now is truly utilizing a tarp, essentially, or the customers having to go out and buy their own shingles and put shingles on their barrel. We wanted to take, again, the guessing game out. If your sauna is going to be outside and it's going to be in the elements, get a roof kit. If it's going to be inside or if it's going to be underneath an overhang, don't get a roof kit. And we want it to be aesthetic. So for us, if somebody's going to invest 8 to 10K into a sauna, I want them to be really proud that that's theirs. I also want them to know it's US made, Ohio made. The other thing that we found was finding the right craftsman was going to be the biggest pain point for us, but at the same time, the biggest success once we get it dialed in. And so we both realized on that run that the Amish were right in our backyard, and they are unbelievably efficient when it comes to production and craftsmanship. So we took and ran with this concept in Amish country, found the right team, and it was apparent right off of the first prototype how vastly different the quality of the cuts, the quality of how it was sanded, the quality of how it was truly handcrafted. Each piece was handpicked. It felt way different than if you were to buy an economy barrel sauna with a Harvey heater. It was just different. And we've had a number of people actually swap out their old barrel saunas for a SISU because of the quality. Because our saunas, at the end of the day, we wanted them to be able to just not only have people host, but they are built to last.
Wow.
The built to last part is huge for us because I want somebody, if they're investing 8 to 10K into a barrel, I want them to have 100% satisfaction that this is going to last for a long time and they're sharing it within their family for a long time.
Dude, it's so interesting that you guys found the Amish in your backyard because they are the most base people of all time. We talk about them from a nutritional perspective all the time because, number one, incredibly faith-based. And then when it comes to food, they have some of the best food standards out of anyone. It's all pasture-raised, grass-finished meat. It's raw milk. It's cream. Did you see that study that just came out about them a couple months ago? No. I guess they did some survey of like thousands of Amish children. There wasn't a single instance of like childhood obesities, pre-diabetes, or autism in the entire population. And
it's no coincidence.
It's not a coincidence.
No. And I think it's because they're so intentional with everything that they do. They don't they don't have TVs. They're not around technology. So one of the things is that in modern society, we're very distracted. Whereas their society, it's very relationship driven and work purpose driven. You go to work, you come back home, and you spend time with your family. That's what you do.
Yeah.
If you're looking for entertainment, you go outside and play. Amish are also insane at basketball.
Are they really?
Yeah, it's unbelievable. They'll wreck you.
That's insane.
Yeah, and it was so funny. One of the first times that I went into Amish country during the winter, I saw this court that was filled with maybe 12 to 15 Amish kids, and it was probably 15 degrees outside. Not a single kid had gloves on. They're all playing like hardcore defense in their full attire, and they didn't have any coats. It was short sleeves, and they were getting after it. It blew my mind. But they have a level of toughness that modern society doesn't really have.
Yes.
Because they're so driven on their purpose with their work and their family and keeping life more simple and authentic. And I think that we could learn a lot from their culture.
Damn. So for pickup basketball, you just got to recruit a couple Amish kids and you'll crush.
You'll crush.
Yeah. How was it approaching them as an outsider to the community? Were there any reservations, or were they like, hey, we like you, let's do this thing?
Yeah. So the manufacturing site that we ended up really taking a deep dive into was owned by a Finnish man, Mark, who's turned into an absolute just awesome family member. Basically, he has he owned this manufacturing site where he had this entire Amish team. And so when we brought Mark and the team the idea and wanted to partner on it and make it really come to fruition, every single one of the Amish guys looked at the idea and said, wow, this could be really special, because it's so different from what they were doing prior. It was heavy cabinetry, heavy millwork, doors, trim, to something that is actually going to affect somebody's life for the better. And it's a true passion project. This is what the Amish community talks about on their Sundays and Saturdays when they get their whole families together. And what's so fun too now is that we have our wood burning sauna. So they're able to actually utilize the wood burning unit versus they couldn't really use the electric unit prior, just based off like their culture. And so now we joke around that the lunch breaks are consisting of wood burning sauna sessions, and now like the Amish guys are going back like dripping on the wood and stuff. It's super fun.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it's so fun.
Yeah, and you have an interesting, I don't want to even call it a problem, but you're trying to solve for a really high quality artisan product, and then you're trying to do it at scale too, which those things typically don't go hand in hand as well.
Yeah, it's the production side. You have to have your system super dialed in to really bring it out. There's a reason why there's more custom sauna companies out there as compared to higher production, single SKU, double SKU companies, is because it's really hard to replicate. And it's, again, a dream pairing, having the Amish be able to take this concept and be able to replicate it very quickly and efficiently and create it and get it shipped out within 3 to 4 weeks. And in that process, obviously we've had to refine and we'll continue to refine. It'll be really, really fun to see where our actual limit is going to be in terms of number of orders based off of our current team and how many guys we have and when we're going to need more space.
Yeah.
So like the space started off as really one room within this manufacturing site to taking over 2 rooms or 3 rooms now to the entire facility. And we're going to find, I think, over the next 4 or 5 months, what the capacity is going to be, where we're then going to have to pivot and start to get more crafty and higher and potentially also take on more space.
So any Amish people that are listening, you're actively hiring.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have if you're able to share it, do you have like an approximate number of saunas that you guys are moving a month right now?
Yeah. So we have roughly, we've been very, very fortunate month by month to be able to grow. And so we have around 50 to 60 people monthly investing into SISUs.
That's
and
incredible.
Which, again, as a reflecting back on it, it gives me a lot of appreciation for what we went through prior without selling anything. And I think that we're in a very fortunate position to start creating demand in the U.S. space, because we're starting to get more and more people understanding that sauna can be a way of life in the United States, because it's still a very new concept. It's very prominent in Europe.
Yeah.
But I totally see us being able to continue to drive demand for sauna if we do it the right way.
Dude, that is such a incredible accomplishment of 50 to 60 units from not having sold a single unit for 18 months. I mean, the gratitude and the perspective that you have, like every win, you're just going to savor it so much more because you know how difficult it was being in the dirt for those 18 months with that business.
Yeah, 100%. And it's one of those things where I remember back at the start when we first got the manufacturing idea off the ground, I always wondered what my life would be like when we had 10 units or 10 different people investing into SISU in their life, what that would be for my family.
Mm-hmm.
And then that came, and then you're always focused on the gap, right? There's the gap and the gain story where you're at a certain point right now, and the gap is where you're currently at to where you want to go. And then the gain is where you were to where you're at now. I've never been a guy to really focus on the gain. I've always been a guy to focus on the gap. And I think this is a very common thing for humans to think about, or just to have mental processes about. We get so focused on the gap that you never really appreciate what actually happened.
Mm-hmm.
And so that 10 unit month came after 2 months, right? And I remember, wow, like my lifestyle is changing. My family life is starting to change a little bit in a good way too. I'm able to provide a little bit on this and adjacent to the gym business. This is kind of fun, but you start focusing again on the gap. And so then you keep driving. And what I ended up realizing is that it's not any sort of financial or monetary compensation that I'm looking for from SISU. But what I've finally come to internalize is that it's the fulfillment of actually changing somebody's life through sauna and with SISU, and somebody actually getting that SISU lifestyle and running with it.
Yeah.
That's what really gets me going. And so now that's my entire mission, is, at least with this business again, is to get more people embracing the SISU lifestyle. I don't really care about how many units per se for financial gain. It's more so, again, can we just get more people adjusted to this new lifestyle and embracing hard shit?
Yeah. There's like this natural tendency when we record a show or like with the content that you see of like, you know, hey Pete, what are your like business tips to being a successful founder? And I just feel like it's like you can give someone the exact playbook. Most people aren't going to do it. I think what you're talking about is finding this like motivational focal point that's so strong that it like pushes you towards where you want to go. So you're
100%.
right. Like your thought process is, dude, if I don't get this stuff dialed in, if I don't have our supply chain dialed in, if it's not super high quality, whatever, if we don't have customers coming back, that's like another opportunity for someone to either not purchase a sauna, so they're not getting healthier, or maybe they're going to go overseas and get something that's just manufactured in China. Like those are the stakes that you have to have with the business that you're doing.
Yeah. I'm a big believer of just doing it the right way the first time. And if we don't do it the right way, I'm going to own that mistake. I'm going to take full responsibility. I'll make it right for the customer.
Yeah.
It's a sauna, which means it's a wood product. There's many working pieces to it. You also have the heater. You also have the crating. You also have the shipping. There's a lot of nuances to it, and things are going to naturally happen. And we're really, really big in making sure that you as a customer are 100% happy, because again, I genuinely care that you have a great sauna experience.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise I would not be in this business.
Totally.
That's just who I am. And our entire team embraces that. So we always make sure it's right for the customer. And it's one of the reasons why so many people are now investing into SISU, is because they know that they expect quality and it's going to be done right.
Yeah. I think you're going to like this, and I want to get your thought process on this, but I've been spending a lot of time thinking about just like this negative, almost like psychological manipulation of not wanting to pay for quality and wanting to pay for convenience. So I think there's actually a lot of parallels between the saunas you're selling and like regenerative meat in general. And what I mean by that is we've been so negatively conditioned through like processed food, which is meant to be as cost effective and addictive as possible. And even just like cheap budget meats that come from a feedlot where the animals are fed corn and soy. It's really destructive for the environment. There's this weird psychological conditioning where I can teach you about regenerative meat, but it's still like, but that regenerative meat is $9 a pound. And then there's $4.99. And what I've been trying to get myself into the mindset of like, dude, this meat should be more expensive. It is so hard to finish an animal on all grass, the energy that went into that, the nutrients that the meat is going to provide you. Good quality red meat should objectively be more expensive, right? So it kind of reminds me of a SISU, because I'm sure that there are some people when they see the price point, they're like, 5 to 10K, that's really expensive. And it's like, no, dude, there's no better way to spend your hard-earned dollars on a high quality product that's actually going to make your life better too.
Yeah. And that's where our society is at, as they see the dollar amount. They don't necessarily see the feeling that they'll get from it.
Mm-hmm.
And people need to be more in tune with their feelings when the difference of how you feel of a good grass-fed, grass-finished meat.
Yes.
Compared to one that was processed. There's a fine difference.
Mm-hmm.
You have energy. You wake up in the morning feeling incredible. You sleep great. Your workouts are better. You're more productive. You're more clear in your thought processes off of a piece of meat.
Yes.
That could have been $2 more per pound compared to the processed meat. But again, because we lean into the dollar amounts and not actually how we feel, I don't think people realize that if you were to actually invest into like the quality of what you're consuming, you're going to be wildly more productive, which means that your value for time as an entrepreneur, value for time as a husband, value for time as a father drastically improves, drastically increases. And so I always think about, what is my value for time worth? Not necessarily in terms of dollar amounts, but in my terms of effectiveness and, I'm losing my track of thought. Like more so like effectiveness and my ability to make people feel fulfilled.
Yes.
Right. And so simply having a better quality piece of meat, or having a better sauna, or having fewer options of clothing, but more quality options of clothing, make me feel better.
Yes.
And that feeling makes me way more productive.
That's such a good point. And isn't it like, it's the best feeling to reward someone that has that artisan mindset too, like going to a local coffee shop, knowing the barista or the coffee shop owner, knowing that they're sourcing their beans intentionally. It's like, yeah, I might pay a little bit more money, but it just feels so good. Or going to a rancher or paying for a SISU sauna, like that feeling of rewarding someone for the effort they put in.
Yes.
And your friends, like I couldn't think of a better way to spend my money, honestly.
Yeah. And I think that the small businesses are the backbone of America. We all know this. And the more that we're able to support one another and support your friends' businesses, it's going to make for a much, much better community, especially like our local communities. And
yeah.
Where we're from in Cleveland, it's an incredible food and coffee scene, great bar scene as well. But there's so many great coffee shops that are locally sourcing their coffee beans and like hand picking them and really going through the process and present them in the right way. And they have them in the right mugs. It's the whole experience.
It's the whole experience.
The experience counts.
Yeah. I mean, we could do a whole podcast just on the physical recovery detox benefits that consistent sauna usage will get you. But my own personal experience, I have multiple memories throughout the last year, because this is like my first stint into entrepreneurship, of going from a corporate job to entrepreneurship. And you know this, right? Some days it almost feels like you're bipolar, where I'll get the biggest win I've ever had, and then the next day is like all hell just breaks loose. It's like this constant oscillation.
That's good though.
It's very good. And I've had multiple moments on those low days where I'll go sauna and then plunge afterwards. And there's just this, I've had multiple feelings afterwards of, I just trust that everything is going to work out. And I felt like crap before. And then I went and did that for 20 minutes and I felt like a completely different person and just trusted the process. So that's just my own anecdotal experience, but that's been the biggest benefit of consistent sauna usage over the last 3 to 4 years for me.
Yeah. I see that, especially the entrepreneurial spirit. When you have ideas and you execute on them, not every single idea is going to pan out. Some ideas will stick, some won't. But I'm telling you that I feel like the wins that you'll get reassure the journey, and the lows allow you to refine the process.
Yes.
It's never a failure. It's an opportunity to learn and then refine.
Yeah.
What we found with our business, we went from 3 to 4 people at the start to like 17 plus with SISU. If something is failing, or if there's an opportunity for something to improve, it's never a person or a people thing. It's a process thing. And so that's why it's super important as a entrepreneur to take a deep dive into your SOPs and get everything squared away. How does this process look? What are the granular details to have a super successful customer experience or order management experience or what have you? Because that allows you to be able to refine and make what you want as an entrepreneur actually come out and be delegated the right way. But to your extent, or to your point, as an entrepreneur, I think Sauna Co Plunge is a fantastic medium, because it allows them to be able to shift the way that entrepreneurs are meeting with other entrepreneurs. And it also allows you to be able to find clarity and a constant in your life that gives you that mental reset and gives you a moment to take a deep breath and gather focus on more work or your business. Or for me, I find it's a buffer between my time for work and my time to now pivot back to the family.
Yes.
There's buffers are huge because it's really hard to just flip a switch. All right, my business mind's off now. I have to go focus on my kids. Now I got to go focus on my time with my wife. Having buffers and sauna being a buffer and cold plunge being a buffer, it's super impactful, and you only need 15 to 20 minutes to do it.
And do you use it as a buffer where you'll sauna like before work or after work? Like, what is your routine that helps you get in that buffer of delineating between SISU Pete and just like dad Pete, husband Pete?
Yeah. So I've got very intentional buffers in my day. Right now, I wake up and I always have to hit some morning movement. So right now, obviously, I always like to either work out or lift or run in the morning. It's a good buffer between my sleep and my time for work. So it gets me mentally prepared for what needs to happen at work. As soon as I'm done with my morning run or lift, I'll get the kids up, enjoy that time with them. And as soon as within a half hour, 45 minutes, my wife takes them to our sitter, it's go time for work. I get right to work.
Yep.
I don't delay it. It's time to go. One of the biggest issues that entrepreneurs have is that they keep delaying what they need to be doing. And it goes back to that cold plunge analogy we were talking about earlier. Your inner dialogue tells you to not do it. Then you keep delaying, and now time goes by. You just got to do it.
Yeah.
So as soon as the kids are out the door, I go to work. For me, with sauna, cold plunge, typically I'll cold plunge in the morning when it's colder out in Cleveland, just because it's easier for me to not have to source ice. And then I introduce sauna in the evenings, actually before bed. So my buffer between work and when it's family time is actually driving to the sitter. It's 15 to 20 minutes to get to the sitter, pick up the kids, and I don't have any music on. I just clear my mind, breathe, just enjoy that car ride, and just be really focused on where I'm at in space. I'll pick up the kids, take them back home, and it's truly just being the best dad I could possibly be for 3 to 4 hours and get them down to bed with my wife. And then Paige, my wife, and I will then jump in the sauna at night after the kids go down. And then that's our time to come together and talk about and relive the day, recap the day, and then talk about what we need to do tomorrow and just kind of breathe and just enjoy each other's presence. And so what that does, it's a wind down tool for me. So it's my buffer between what happened through the day for work, my athletic pursuits, and my family life, and my ability to go to sleep. So the number one productivity tool I could possibly recommend somebody to get a grasp of is their sleep.
Yeah.
So sauna induces some of the best sleep possible. I have never had such deep sleep and such amazing REM sleep before until I started utilizing sauna.
Yeah.
And so doing 15 to 20 minutes 4 to 5 times weekly has made such a significant difference in how I feel when I wake up in the morning. And I'm so much more rested. And the data on my Oura Ring supports that.
Yeah. Another benefit of having the sauna at your house is you're able to do those nighttime sessions. Yeah, maybe your gym will be open late, which is great, but a lot of times, like even a couple of the gyms here, the sauna's closed by like 7, 8 o'clock. So there's sometimes I'm like, damn, I wish I just had one in my backyard.
I'm a big believer of creating convenience for the items and the things that you know are going to move the needle for your life, and making the things that aren't super inconvenient.
Yeah.
So if sauna is something that actually moves the needle for you and you find great productivity and great benefit from, why would you make it super inconvenient? You got to bring that to your home.
Definitely.
You have to. It's the same thing with cold immersion. People don't realize that a cold shower is a great cold immersion tool, and we all have it, and it's basically free.
Yeah.
We just choose not to do a cold shower in the morning.
Yes.
It's the same thing at night, obviously. So I think that the convenience factor needs to be, people need to be more in tune with what they're digesting from a convenience standpoint for what actually moves the needle and what doesn't. And I'm telling you, sauna is one of those things.
Definitely. Sorry, I'm just texting my next appointment to tell them we need to push 30 minutes because this podcast is too good. So
I love it.
I don't want to be rude and texting while we're on the podcast.
You're good.
I also noticed too, in some ways I feel like sauna is kind of like zone 2 cardio. Like my heart rate,
it's not kind of, it is.
It is zone 2 cardio because your heart rate will get to that sweet spot of like 120, 130. Correct. And my data on my Garmin, the more that I sauna, I'll notice my resting heart rate will decrease the more that I use the sauna too.
Correct. So from the zone 2 perspective, what zone 2 is, for somebody that doesn't know, is 60 to 70% of your max heart rate. It's this area for aerobic foundation building. And the more time that we spend there at this like moderate intensity aerobic state, the more resilient we become, the more fat adapted we become, just more from a cognitive standpoint, the better and more efficient we become. So what's fun about zone 2 training is that the minimum effective dose, as what Peter Attia has mentioned in the past, is around 4 times weekly at around 45 minutes per session. So when you look at the cumulative effect, it's around 180 minutes a week. But if I were to get somebody into a sauna, right, and the sauna session's 15 to 20 minutes, and it's 4 to 5 times a week, that's 100 minutes, which means that all of a sudden their need for zone 2 training outside of sauna is around 80 minutes. Which is super impactful, because now all of a sudden the amount of time that I actually need to spend training where I'm getting impact on my joints from running, biking, whatnot, I could do it by just sitting in a sauna.
Wow.
So it makes it super convenient, and it's a great tool to build that aerobic foundation.
Will you still do zone 2 cardio, or is it mostly
all the time?
All the time.
Yeah.
So you're not just going to be like, hey, straight sauna for zone 2. You're going to sauna and do some running or cycling or whatever.
It is extremely important. Sauna is not a substitute for exercise. It is an exercise mimetic in terms of what it does from the heart rate and what it does for like growth hormone production, but it should never change out what you should be doing with your exercise. At the end of the day, the more clean the top 3 things in my mind, if you are able to get a grasp of having great relationships, eat quality food, and exercise, that is the top 3 most effective things. Sleep is up there as well, but sauna is a catalyst for all of them. That said, and Todd Anderson, who you just had on the podcast, says this really well. If there's one thing that you could do to get you to exercise more frequently, a great gateway drug is sauna. Because it's such a low barrier for entry. You just go there and sit and you feel great, and you get that dopamine spike, and your sleep improves. And because you were sweating, you're now more inclined to want to eat healthier.
Yes.
And because I was there, I was also spending quality time with people. So now my relationships are improving. So it's a great start to get into there, but sauna should never be replaced. Or I should say exercise should never be replaced with just sauna as a way to exercise. It needs to be a joint effort.
That's awesome. Are there any other like big misconceptions around sauna that you want to address, or things that you see?
Yeah.
It's probably a lot.
Yeah. So for the novice, most people see sauna and they don't know the difference between an infrared sauna and a traditional sauna. An infrared sauna is with near infrared wavelengths, and it gets up to about 150 degrees, and it induces like a deeper sweat. The room doesn't necessarily heat up. It's more so the near infrared wavelengths heating up your internal body temperature. For traditional sauna, what it has been going on for hundreds of years is it's in the electric space, the way that we do it, you have a heater with coils, and the coils heat up the rocks, and then the rocks heat up the room. So you could get that up to 230 degrees in our case, but most saunas around 185. There's a significant difference between 150 to 160 degrees and 175 degrees plus. The reason being is that all the research that is coming out on sauna and the amazing effects that it's having on people, from the physiological, the athletic, the sleep, preventing Alzheimer's, what have you, is happening at 176 degrees plus. So at 176 degrees plus, there's this heat stress and heat response that's far different from what you experience in an infrared sauna. So what we found in my experience, infrared sauna is really a lot of marketing, and it looks good and it's convenient. I could plug it into the wall and it gets people to sweat. But the actual effects that we're trying to seek from sauna that people are talking about, those happen in saunas that occur at least 176 degrees.
Got it.
And up to about 215 degrees plus.
Got it. What's your ideal go-to temperature in the sauna when you go in?
It depends on the mood that I'm going for and what my intended outcome is. For me, if I'm trying to unwind and just enjoy the night and get to a nice deep sleep and not go to the higher zone 2 to lower zone 3, I'll try to stay around 185 degrees. If I'm looking to have a great time and host with guys and really enjoy like a big contrast experience, then I'll do around 200. I find that anything really past 200 to 215, it really is more of like an ego measuring thing. You don't really need to be there. There's really no reason for you to have to suffer at that heat. You could do it. You don't need to.
Yeah, 215 plus is Russian banya style.
Yeah, you don't need it to have the effects from sauna that you're looking for.
Wow. So 250. Yeah. So anything above 215. Yeah. I used to go to those Russian banyas in New York City.
I've never been to one. Are they amazing?
They're amazing. They're
so
insane.
What's the experience like?
So everyone's typically like a Russian from Brooklyn. And there's a couple Americans that are like deep in that. Most people have been going for years. My Ukrainian buddy that I used to work with when I lived in New York took me to the one on Wall Street. It's Wall Street Baths or Spidey 8. It goes by both names, and it's an iconic spot. And there's a steam room. There's like a schwitz room, which is just like a normal sauna. And they have these spouts where you can pour the buckets of cold water, dump it on your head. Cool. There's like a straight cold plunge that looks like a hot tub that you could just jump into. And then there's the actual Russian sauna. And it's like 3 stories of benches. Yep. And I think the top floor is like 230 to 240. And when if
you've ever been in 230 to 240, it's sometimes unbearable.
You're holding on for dear life for like 2 to 5 minutes max.
I find that a super hot sauna is way more difficult than a super cold plunge.
Oh, for sure.
Like,
no, 100%.
If you've been to that point, that tipping point, and you're sticking through it in a sauna, you feel like you're having a near-death experience.
For sure.
And I know that's not a good selling point, but you don't have to get that hot.
Yeah.
But if you want to inflict some pain, you can.
Well, even the beautiful thing about Squatch, because you mentioned is it Hume? Is that how you, or Hume? Yeah. They have one in their sauna. It's a big sauna, and it'll routinely get to 205, and that thing is cooking in there, man.
Yeah. You always know it's getting tough when everybody's heads go down.
Yeah. What kind of heater are you allowed to pour water on the rocks versus what can you not pour water on the rocks on?
Yeah. So at most traditional sauna heaters, you can pour water on the rocks. The more rock volume you have, the more even of a steam you'll get. In Finland, they call it loyally, which is basically that effect of the steam and how it just kind of engulfs the space, the humidity that you get. It's just a really cool sensation. But lower rock volume, the more of an immediate and less even steam that you'll get. You cannot do that in infrared. You cannot do that in infrared. But what I find to be really, really fun is when you combine essential oil with the water and then you pour it on the rocks and then you get that aroma with it too. It just kind of it engulfs the space and really heightens your senses.
Got it. I've been seeing some of these recent studies on Twitter, and I don't know the legitimacy at all of them, but apparently there are these studies coming out that getting too much heat for men can like damage your sperm count or your fertility or something like that. And I see some guys that are advocating for putting an ice pack on your balls, which I think is kind of ridiculous, but I don't know if you've dug into those studies or if there's any legitimacy to it or if there's anything to address there.
That is the only research that has come out that is valid, where it does theoretically decrease sperm count. It doesn't decrease testosterone levels though, right? So those are two different things.
Got it.
You could actually increase growth hormone production as a result of frequent sauna use. And there's actually one sauna protocol where if you do it once weekly, and it's a very long session, it's 2 to 3 bouts of 20 to 30 minutes in the sauna at 176 to 200 degrees, followed by a 5-minute cooling period, repeated 2 to 3 times, and then you relax, and then you go do it again later in the day. So it's like 2 hours plus in the sauna. That is known to increase growth hormone by nearly like 16 times.
Wow.
It's incredible. But when it comes to sauna, yes, that is true. But I always say, it's very relative. If you are looking to have a baby, obviously you want to make sure that you put your ducks in a row and you take care of what you need to take care of. But at the same time, I'm a big believer of doing what really makes you happy and what fulfills you and what gives you purpose. I had fortunately like 2 kids with my wife. The ones our son Crew is 2.5, and then our daughter Charlie is 6 months. Both cases I was on every single day.
Yeah.
I think that there's other factors that play a role into sperm count as well to keep that higher, but I definitely don't. And I'm not a doctor, so please do not go off of what I'm saying right now. But from what I've seen from an anecdotal standpoint, is that there's many other factors to be able to continue to keep sperm count high while you're in the sauna. But the last thing you ever want to do is put pressure in a situation where there doesn't need to be pressure when you're having kids, because especially in today's day and age, there's all these different pressures that we put on each other that it's very oftentimes self-imposed, where you end up actually overthinking having a kid to the point where you end up not having the ability to produce and end up, getting pregnant. And we see it all the time with unfortunately some of like our close friends,
Mm-hmm.
where they overthink the process and it becomes increasingly difficult to, have a baby.
Yeah, there's all these other factors to fertility, and something that the health space needs to do a better job of. And I've been guilty of this before too. If I see like a news study or some article that comes out with the headshot that supports the way that I think, it's so easy to just want to screenshot that and repost it. And then naturally the consumer will see that and be like, oh, this must be good for me or bad for me. And I think there's so many other factors. Like we don't know the age of the participants. Factors. They don't know the temperature of the sauna, the usage, the frequency. So you got to dig into all those things before you determine if it's like a good thing or bad thing.
Yeah. I'm not a believer of changing your entire lifestyle to be able to drive sperm count, because that you'll do way more harm than good.
Yeah.
You'll drastically increase stress in your life if you start going away from the things that are actually working for you.
Yeah. You're over indexing to solve this one single variable.
Correct.
It's very similar to people that they feel like LDL cholesterol is the boogeyman. So they'll go like strong red meat diet. They'll lose a bunch of weight. Their lifestyle will improve. Their anxiety will go away. They'll get their blood work done. The doctor's really concerned about their LDL, so he hits them with a statin or is like, no, you can't eat these fattier cuts of meat. And then they're just back into that same metabolic rut, which is really interesting. It's like we solve for one thing and then we tack on all these other problems too.
And my question to you then would be, is it actually a metabolic rut or is it a psychological rut? Because are they inheriting what the doctor is telling them? And then because the doctor, who is a trusted professional, tells you that this is the way that I believe your health situation is, they internalize it and run with it, versus potentially getting a second opinion on it. And obviously where medicine's going, there's functional medicine, which I'm a big believer in, and other means of health care. I think that there definitely could be something where people are really buying into what they're being told versus actually like how they feel, and be more in tune with how you feel. And obviously your doctor's trusted, don't get me wrong, but there could be something underlying there where if we take a look behind the curtain, sometimes it's more of a psychological thing of what we believe in and not actually a metabolic thing.
Yeah, there's this weird relationship in Western medicine of doctor-patient where it's just you do what I tell you and I don't want you to ask questions, where some of our best guests that are doctors and holistic health practitioners are like, if anything, I am your trusted advisor and I'm giving you input, but there's also some onus on you too. Even for me, right? It's with ulcerative colitis. If I just blanket trusted my doctor, I would still be on these meds that cost $400,000 a year. No one was telling me to go carnivore. I did a lot of my own research, and I worked with medical professionals to make sure I was doing the right things. But if I didn't take that responsibility, I'm not really sure where I would be right now. And to really answer your question, I think there's 5 major markers of your metabolic health. It's your lipid panel, it's your resting blood sugar, it's your HRV score. It might also be resting heart rate too. There's 5 markers, but more than anything, the most indicative measure of your metabolic health is your waist size. So I would argue that someone that is going on a more animal-based diet and they're losing weight and their waist size is getting thinner, but now they're optimizing for LDL, they're going back to their old lifestyle, and then they're like getting fatter again. That's way more detrimental to their health than just trying to solve for LDL.
Yeah, that's a super, super good point. And specifically carnivore, it's as you have like these fluctuations in your diet, I find it silly that people do something that works so well for them and then they go away from it.
Yes.
And they stop doing what was going so well for them because they got the outcome that they wanted.
Yes.
There's this old proverb, and it's one of my favorite things. It's called "Chop wood, carry water." I'm not sure if you heard this.
It's one of my favorite books, by the way.
Okay, I haven't read it yet.
It's an amazing book.
But the saying goes: before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. All that simply means is that when you have an outcome and you're working toward an outcome, you have a certain system and process. In this case, it's how you're eating for the intended outcome of losing weight and decreasing waist size, improving body composition. Once you get there, what happens? Nobody plans for what happens after the outcome. And they strip away all the systems and processes and go back to what was actually comfortable prior to going through that whole process. And then they gain that weight back plus, right? So why go away from what was working for you? Continue to stick it out. And then refine it and then continue to refine it and continue to refine it? Why go away from the systems and processes that were working for you?
It's such a good point. It's so interesting. I think that's part of the danger of using like a weight goal as an objective measure of if you're getting healthier or not, because I've talked to a lot of people where I'll explain my dietary approach or a low carb diet or whatever. And they'll be like, you know what? I did that 3 to 5 years ago and I lost 30 pounds. Like, so why did you stop? Yeah. And I don't know but I think it's what you're saying is you set this metric and then you hit it. And then I don't know if it's complacency or whatever. And then you just kind of go back to these old habits instead of thinking, no, this is an ongoing process that's never going to be finished. But now you hit that goal. How much further can you go?
And that's why I'm so infatuated with like the SISU Lifestyle component, because it is literally that. It's I'm attaining my goal. Whether or not I'm struggling to get there, I don't get there. Mm-hmm. I'm going to keep going, and I'm going to keep going, and I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep seeking out things that are giving me the outcomes that I want, and the results that I want, and the lifestyle that I want. And I think it's more of a lifestyle thing than it is like an outcome thing. For me, I have every single year very specific events that I put on the calendar that are a genuine challenge to me that kind of scare me. And it keeps me trained, not because I'm looking for a specific body composition or a certain weight. It's because I want to be able to accomplish a certain task or accomplish a certain performance that actually matters to me.
Yeah.
And that helps me stay healthy versus being, I'm going to chase a number. And if I don't get that number, then I'm a failure.
Yeah.
Right. It's different where you pull it out and it's more of, I'm going to apply what my intended outcome is. And all of a sudden I'm taking care of a million other things on the side because I'm really focused on this one physical endeavor.
Yeah.
It's special for me to be able to do that because it's very stimulating for me mentally. And it's fun to be able to do something that actually scares the shit out of me.
Yes. What are you signed up for now that scares the shit out of you?
Yeah. So I mentioned prior, I'm in the ultra space. I've been running ultra for a while. I also really love strength training concurrently. So I typically run at higher body weights. So it's fun to be able to do that. But that said, I've got 2 100-mile trail runs coming up this coming year. And in prep for that, I've got 3 50K to 50 milers in process to that. And in March of this coming year, my dad and I are actually going to Antarctica to run a 50K together.
Wow.
And it's part of this running tours group. And so it's a 2-week trip, and we get to spend time in Buenos Aires, Argentina, and then go down to this super small town in Argentina, the southernmost city in the world called Chuya. And then we get on a boat, and then we go down to Antarctica, and it's this awesome 50K experience. And on the continent of Antarctica. So that's something that I'm really looking forward to. And I wouldn't say it necessarily scares me. What does scare me a little bit is the 100-miler, not because I don't think I could accomplish it, but because I think from my past experiences with running hundreds, there's a lot of health related things that could potentially go on. Like after my first 100-mile completion, I actually ended up passing out because my blood sugar was so low right in front of my wife. And she almost like called the ambulance. And so I don't want those things to happen, but it's so fulfilling to me. I never want to put my family in jeopardy or my health in jeopardy, but there's something about being so prepared and trying to not let those past mistakes happen again.
Yes.
That scares me a little bit because I'm doing my best to prepare for it and not for that outcome to happen. But I think because it scares me a bit, it motivates me to not let that past mistake happen again.
Yeah. And there's also this, this interesting balance of, yes, I'm doing it because I want to do something physically that's challenging, but there's also this mental, spiritual component of why you're doing it too. Like that's the benefit of putting a big race on the calendar. And you're kind of inspiring me because Harry and I did 100K last year.
Oh, cool.
It was the Habanero 100. We didn't train for it at all. So it was in Houston on a ranch. So hottest part of the country in August. And they started at like 12 o'clock in the afternoon. So it's like when the sun is at peak temperature. Yeah. And I didn't train for it and Harry didn't train for it. And we just got absolutely smashed during the race, but we finished it.
Congrats.
And thank you. But honestly, it was very, it was great for confidence because for our business partnership, we're like, all right, we know we're not going to quit on the other person. But it kind of took the wind out of my sails a little bit because I had done an Ironman before that. I had done a bunch of races for the last couple of years. And I don't know if I burnt out is the right word, but I've been more so in business mode. But you're encouraging me of like, no, dude, if you're going to build a business and do something difficult, you should also be putting these hard things on the calendar too.
Dude, one of the things that I really put a heavy focus on is never letting the business run me. I run the business, and it is not my identity. at the end of the day, when somebody's writing my obituary, I don't want them to write in the obituary that he was a great worker. I don't want that to be part of my identity.
Yes.
It's part of this movement and lifestyle I'm trying to create, right? But it's one of the things where I would rather be known as a great family man, a great husband, a guy who pursued really difficult things. And I think that that's one of those things where if I'm trying to build my ideal lifestyle is not working 12 hours a day and then spending the rest of the time with my kids.
Yeah.
My ideal lifestyle is I'm spending quality family time with my wife and my kids. I'm training and doing, difficult tasks with fitness, and I'm running a great company with a great team and exemplifying quality through the experiences that we're creating. That's that lifestyle that I want to create. So many people get so deep into business that they forget that their lifestyle and their health is what's most important. Their family is what's most important. And so I really put a heavy focus on that.
So it's like this to you, it's this well-balanced thing of all the things that you love.
I wouldn't even call it balanced. Yeah. I would say it's more so I've really stripped away the things that don't give me, that don't move the needle in my life and really heavily focused on the few things that do. And I just know when to prioritize when and what. So for me, no matter what, it's my time with my wife, my relationship with my wife. We've been married for 5 years. It's my time with my kids. It's my time to better my health. And then it's my time with my business, right? Like my time with my family and my kids, that's also adjacent with our close friends.
Yeah.
But everything else outside of that, I'm really saying no to at this point because this is what fulfills me right now. Nothing else really matters. There could end up becoming times where there's more business ideas or other ways to invest to drive the experience that we're creating forward or my family forward. And if it becomes a priority, then I'll say yes to it. But at this point, everything else is a no. Yeah. What I'm really focused on is the core stable of things that actually fulfill me.
So you've identified those buckets and then you just hammer those buckets and anything else is just not a priority.
Yeah. And you just say no.
Do you believe in the concept of seasons where, hey, the business is going to require a lot of my time. I'm going to go all in on this. Hey,
100%.
My family requires this. SISU might have to take a little bit of a back seat. Do you think that's important to have too?
100%. And you have to know that is life. I've seen it multiple times now with our own kids. My wife had 6-month maternity leaves. She works for Nestle, and she's really more so like on the customer advocacy side. So she looks at unhealthier foods and really tries to become more transparent in the way that the customer is digesting the information on the food. So it's really purposeful for her. But that said, when she's on maternity leave, much like when I'm on paternity leave, it is 100% full focus on raising our daughter and me helping my wife through this process of her navigating the mother-daughter relationship. It's the same thing that happened with our son. And so, well, guess what? I'm going to have to delegate my responsibilities to somebody else in my business for them to be able to run with it. And then I'll be back to help them.
Yes.
But that's the culture that we've developed, and that's the team that we've developed. And it's one of the reasons why it's super important to have a playbook and processes within your business, because if you step away from your business, is your business able to continue to run? No. So you have to be able to set up, set that up to be able to run with it. So when you're able to step away, the business is able to continue to run at 100%.
Yeah. And it's amazing when you hire really good people around you and you delegate how they step up to those tasks that you like. I think it's so easy as a founder to like safeguard or protect some of these tasks of like, I don't know if anyone could do it to my level. And then when you give people the responsibility, it's like, number one, they could do it, and probably they can even do it better than you could do it too.
That's your goal when you hire. You want to hire people that could do something that you could do at 120%. Our criteria for hiring is very, very simple. We call it a GWC, and it's an entrepreneurial operating system procedure that we look at called EOS. So the GWC is when I'm looking to hire for a specific process. So this person would take on a process in the company. They have to get the process, and they have to have full understanding and full passion in that process. So they have to get it. They have to want it. They actually have to have a desire to fulfill that process and own it. And they have to have the capacity to do it. So get it, want it, capacity to do it. If they have all three check marks in those three boxes, I'm hiring them.
Wow.
And I know for a fact I'm going to get way more value of them doing the work than me doing the work, because I could then focus on looking at from a 10,000 foot level of making sure that everybody is fulfilling the processes the right way, not micromanaging, but helping them, working together side by side to make sure that processes are being fulfilled the right way to be able to keep the quality where it needs to be.
Will you ever take a chance on someone that's 2 out of 3 and a little bit more of a raw talent that wants it really bad that might not get it now? Or is it like 3 out of 3, they have to hit these things?
Yeah, I think that it's a case by case basis based off the needs of the company. And you'll never, as much as you want a 3 out of 3, there's going to become times where there'll be a 2 out of 3. And a great example of this would be somebody that would be more junior, that's right out of college, that doesn't have experience, where they want to have the capacity to do it, but don't 100% fully get it. But I, through the processes, could get them onboarded into the company where they could own the process and learn from the process through experience. And they could gain the experience because the process has already been documented.
Awesome. What's the best way for people to connect with you and SISU if they want to hear more about what you've got going on, or they're interested in getting one of your units?
Yeah, so if you are interested in SISU and want to just learn more about the SISU Lifestyle, go to sisulifestyle.com. It's SISU Lifestyle.com. You could follow us on Instagram at sisu_sauna. And then personally, you could reach out on Instagram at Peter Nelson II. And I'd be more than happy to chat.
Brother, this has been amazing. And I'm not just saying this because you're on the show. I personally learned a ton from this podcast. I was fired up beforehand because, like we said, we absolutely hit it off a couple days ago. But I think the podcast even exceeded my expectations, and I just know that there's going to be something special that happens between what you're doing and what we're doing, and I just can't wait to see the way that it grows, man. I appreciate you for fighting the good fight. Yeah, likewise, man. The relationship, again, to me, matters more than anything, and it's such a great opportunity to be able to finally meet you in person and just chop it up. So thank you so much. Awesome. Thanks, Pete. All right, thanks.